came across this chopper crash site and the position is terrible. High traffic area, military compounds nearby, 360-degree exposure over massive distances. I'd normally skip a situation like this, but I've had this character for about 30 hours of play, so I thought maybe it's time to roll the dice, see what happens. My plan was to wait and see if other players approached and to try and clear them out before going in myself. Without that happening, if no one else came in, I'd just walk away. I first tried to get an angle on the chopper from the eastern side, but the base of the chopper wasn't visible and I could only see the blade sticking out over the crest of the undulating terrain. The north side can get me closer to the crash with some cover on approach, but this is inside the area that will be visible to other players who are trying to get eyes on the chopper from their vantage points. And I want to stay outside that area as much as possible and allow others to expose themselves first so I can decide what to do once I see them. I made a video a while ago about how I classify and manage these different zones and the tactics I like to use. I'll put a link in the description if you want to see more detail on that. So I eventually moved up to high ground on the southern side of the valley, which I had closer access to from my first position, and more vegetation to break up my silhouette against the hillside. And this is where the footage where you're now watching started. I was already on the southern side. Increasing distance from the point of interest increases safety, but I'm also concerned about players moving in from the south behind me. As usual, I'm going to spend much more time checking these positions and vantage points overlooking the chopper, lines of traffic players might use to make their own approach and so on, rather than the point of interest itself. But even from up here, I still can't get a line of sight from this safer distance, so I decided to get closer. And now I can feel that I'm getting kind of pulled into this vortex around the chopper that other players are going to be moving into. As I'm moving, I can't see the chopper, which is actually good because it's less likely that other players will see me. There's a small channel in the terrain which provides a shallow defilade and covers me on the left and right as I approach. The train tracks are on raised earth and that actually covers me from the front too. I never intended to get this close, but as I peek over the crest, I can see a player. I don't take a shot when he's moving laterally to me to avoid having to lead my shot, but when he takes a direct line toward me, that's when I put him down. I've made a rule for myself lately that I have to loot the body of anyone I take down, so I can't back out now. When I see one player, I always assume there's more, and if that's true, I'll be dead if I head straight down there. Typically at this point, if shots are fired by myself or anyone else, I'll do a reset, and that idea is also covered in that same old video I'll link to. To perform the reset, I'd get back behind that crest of the train track and move west, although the sound of the gunshots could draw players from the vicinity of the northwest airfield who might spot me as I'm moving between them and the chopper. And then I'd swing out quite far, beyond visible distance to the chopper, then come back to observe from high ground in a tree line from the north, which is a totally different angle. And I'd camp from that site to see if other players get drawn out, so I can try to engage them as well. At some point I'd have to eventually sprint down to the site and try my luck, which would be very high risk, but it's still much better than getting out there immediately after that first shot. I estimate it would take between about 15 to 30 minutes to run the job this way. And then I think, no, maybe it's time to either get lucky or start fresh with a new character. I know people like to jiggle back and forth while looting to make it harder to get shot. I just don't like doing it. And they deserve my stuff if they get me. I was fine with that result for about 10 minutes. And then I thought, why did I do that? I could have kept going another few months with this character. Now I have to go through that grind to gear up and play the way I like. And I remembered that I don't get much reward out of dying that way. I went to bed feeling shitty about my decision, and I woke up the next day still thinking about it. At the same time, I was smiling that a video game could make me feel this way, make me feel this frustration and regret, and at the same time just wanting to get back in there and do it all over again. The following is some audio that I recorded back in September last year, which was going to feature on someone else's video, but for whatever reason it hasn't been finished. This chopper crash incident made me think back to the comments I made in that clip, so I think it's an appropriate time to share it here. The only failure state in DayZ is death, As far as the game is concerned, if you're not dead, you're successful. That leaves it entirely up to the players to figure out what they want to do with their life. There's no explicit direction or purpose. Some people talk about the end game, but there really is none. The end game is whatever you want it to be, and if you think you're in the end game, it just means you've achieved a specific goal that you set for yourself. DayZ never ends. You just survive, and you do what you find is interesting. There is no other purpose. And that might sound nihilistic and pointless, but when you're able to set a goal for yourself and set out to achieve it, that can be extremely challenging and also extremely rewarding when you pull it off. I started playing DayZ a few months after the mod came out, and it felt like the kind of game I'd waited for my whole life. Life can be hard, chaotic, confusing, other people can ruin it for you, and there's often no one there to help you. You have to build the resilience to accept your own failures and analyse what happened and why you failed. You have to look at yourself for answers, because if you look outside and blame others, you won't progress. Even if it is their fault entirely, getting stuck in a loop of getting upset at them without looking for solutions doesn't help you. You have to change something about yourself to beat them. And even when you do that, you still might fail. A game like DayZ simulates this aspect of life and allows us not to just play a game, but also to decide how we want to face these simulated challenges. You can play out any mental and social experiments, and somehow a part of your brain seems to think it's real. No other game or movie or book has made my heart beat as fast as this game. The only time I've had a larger adrenaline dump is in real life. Sandbox games have been around for a long time, but DayZ is the first honest attempt at making a sandbox game of the human condition, and they kind of pulled it off, and I think that's why it's been so successful.